Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Robert Hooke. You may have looked at some of my videos, you may have read some of my posts on The Druid Speaks, and you may have read some of my poetry on Andrew Hooke, modern day philosopher and poet. And so I've got a rather major announcement for you today. So before I start, I'm going to read a couple of poems, as I always do in my previous video, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do next after I've done that. So let's get the first part out of the way. Okay, the first poem is called Gain or Not to Gain. So, if the knowledge is hidden, it stands to reason that the reason is hidden is for gain. Now, does that explain? Or must the knowledge remain forbidden and hidden? Not in my score. I share knowledge in order for those that have had the forbidden hidden, so you can be free and no longer downtrodden. And that's dedicated to all of you who worked so hard and tried so hard. And if you did fail, well, never mind. It wasn't your fault. Okay? For those that have tried. Now I've got another one. This one's called The Light Worker's Call. Waste not and want not and love each other, for the time has come not to kill another. Peace on earth for all mankind, for those that can see it's time to shine. Now that's a call for all people that can see, to go up to the highest hill or mountain or wherever you can and shine your light on humanity. Okay, that's it. So what I'm going to do now, first off, in order for anyone to believe anybody, someone has to know what they're talking about. And so, I'm going to read out in three different ways, or I'm going to describe in three different ways, the grand unification theory of everything. But it's not theory, it's fact. Alright? I'm going to do it in three ways. I'm going to do it in an explanation for all the scientists out there. And then I'm going to do it in layman's terms, what I said in scientific description. Once I've done that, I shall do it in the language of symbols. Okay? And also in the scientific diagram. Boiled down to the lowest common denominator. Because the lowest common denominator is the only way that you will all understand. There's no point if some understand and most don't, because that's how come you become exploited. Okay? I'm just going to check my video camera to make sure it's not going to cut out on me while I'm doing this for you, so just bear with me a second. Okay, it's fine. So, for the scientists out there, this is in the interest of everybody in agreement. It's going to be your guide to genetics. It's going to be your guide to perpetual energy. It's going to be your guide to understanding black holes. It's going to be your guide to basically everything. It's going to be your guide to actions of wavelength. It's going to be your guide on the internal structure of wavelength. It's going to be your guide on what happens during a pulse shift. It's going to be a guide for many people to understand how to split or reverse information through wavelength. Okay? And it's going to be a guide for your future, because once you understand this, then the whole picture comes together for you. So here we go. We come from the very centre of everything and the very outer of everything, that has the origin from the origin of everything, at centre of everything, being co-joined in a state of harmonic comparative equilibrium, meaning going all ways from centre to centre in total balance of creation and direct and indirect action. Being in an inversed reverse situation to all points to and from origin, in all directions and possible variations, at all times, at a constant rate, from a 360 by 360 by 360 to infinity, which is infinity by infinity, from and by infinity, in an ascending action, to and fro, from all points to all points, from all points to all points, being infinite, and so in the space, in a state of no action resulting in no actions, compression occurred. Now this is a half wave, okay? To all infinities, closed, compression occurred to all infinities, to all infinities. It closed in on itself. The half wave, one way only, in a descending spiral from all points to all points of itself, until at one point became absolute centre to no thing that had occurred before in the state that it was in. This process was a compression that must occur in a non-maintaining structure to cause the inverse reverse to occur. So that's the cause, and be the cause of the cause. All right? Enabling a perpetual chain reaction of entanglement occurring permanently, ascending and descending to self, becoming what I call harmonic comparative equilibrium. Enabling time to exist in waves of dissection where compression breaks further into the origin, exposing more dissection of half wave to origin from origin, creating further complexity of entanglement in all directions, to all directions, from origin of inside of origin and origin of outside of origin, from inside of origin, at which case a dissection of maximum completion of a match to absolute complexity to occur, guaranteeing origin and match balance. So what occurs? This occurs and guarantees immortality of action, so that the structure could not be damaged to allow a one-way collapse. That point has occurred, where one point met, causing the preceding chain reaction to the and for the rhythm of frequency to pass the constraint held by entanglement until the correct angle of strike happened before, now, and after at once. Maintaining integrity of field of structure, of reaction to action to infinity. Allowing all dimensions to be self-maintaining and maintaining self together at once. This is the grand unification theory as fact, not theory. Okay? Now that sounds a bit confusing what I've read out, but it gets simpler because we'll go into layman's terms next. In layman's or lay humans language, because man is consisted of male and female and all combinations in between. So let's say lay human to keep it balanced, because you are all equal. So in layman's language, lay human's language, one human realised his combination and went to prove himself wrong and right at the same time, to prove to himself what had occurred was in fact no illusion. And it was done for you too. And so, in the process, met and co-joined with Origin and himself, and Origin co-joined with the human, to become Origin and human and Origin at the same time, in all places, simultaneously, in perpetuality of action, direct action. Creating an unbreakable bond for all things, giving you an unbreakable soul in the process. And so, it is your choice now, as your soul is indestructible, where you wished to reside, with Origin, or miss the point, as in a process of protection of structure by all parts or combinations that are a resistance to pure harmony, where all goes with no conscious harm to all parts of all parts, then the conscious Origin in all dimensions will protect all others by eliminating all forms of ugliness or self-defeating structures. That now, ugliness doesn't mean you don't look pretty. Ugliness means everything that is self-defeating to structure. Okay? So of ugliness or self-defeating structures, that combination of entanglement will lead to collapse of main structure. Just as your immune system fights a virus, and so to maintain itself, the shift to the next consciousness has arrived and will cleanse itself of the combinations that do not match Origin and integrity of structure. Very important, the word integrity. Okay. And so, what you have wished for and feared for is about to happen. Do not be afraid, my friends. There's nothing to fear at this stage for you. Why? Because you can rearrange your switching by aligning your consciousness with Origin. By not judging. As unless you know, like I do, alright, as that is my level of consciousness and my combination, okay? You have not been absolutely responsible for your actions, as you were not clear of your operating systems of behaviour, as it was hidden from you and your language confused, and you forgot the rightful way to bliss in immortality. Okay? Now here we go. We want to know how things come from nothing. Well, something was in a place that was nothing, but something was within nothing, and that something came from somewhere. Okay, you might call it a contamination of nothing, but it was the right contamination because it allowed everything to be. Okay, so first we've got one way, so that's like a half wavelength. This is symbolism. Okay, so there's a half wavelength. Doesn't matter which way you put it round, it's a half wavelength. Okay, you can have it up in any variation, but it's a half wavelength. Okay, it's one way, not two ways. Okay. Now I've written a few symbols here that you'll all recognise. Now these have been around with us for a very, very long time, and you know how to count. But what these symbols are showing you is the action of wavelength. Not only does it describe the action of wavelength, it describes numbers, which mean something to you. And whenever you describe anything, you can describe everything that there is with numbers. And everything that there is wavelength or frequency, right? Of vibration, down to atoms and much further below that, much smaller, to infinity. Okay? Now, so while we're looking at this, just have a good look. Okay, so I'm going to fill in this circle here. All right, so we've got one wavelength here. I'm going to talk about these in a little bit, but we've got underneath that, we've got the addition symbol, plus, we've got the division symbol, and we've got the multiplication symbol, and we've got the minus symbol. And you've all understood the meanings of them, but I'm going to give you the correct meanings now. All right? You've never heard of this before, but you're going to hear it now. The truth. All right? And the reason why the truth is hidden in these things is because the truth needs to be protected, okay, at all costs. It's part of the way things are. There's many ways to protect the truth. Oh, let me assure you that. This is one of them. Okay, so what this means is when one way, you've got one way and the other way. So when two wavelengths meet, okay, what happens is this. They inverse from one way to the other way. So it's like they go like that, okay? So it inverses, right? And then it flips one way or it flips the other way, just like a mirror. So you've got when one wave meets the other wave, it inverses and then flips one way or flips the other way, all right? And the result is a wavelength that's going forward, okay? So, and that wavelength contains everything that was within that, okay? From the result of the two wavelengths meeting, okay? So we're going to fill this circle in here. When I say two wavelengths meeting, I actually mean one wavelength cutting itself. In other words, striking in a particular type of motion. So what we've got, the first thing that happens is one way meets the other way, all right? One way meets the other way. Okay? Then we've got an inverse that occurs from all places actually. So we've got from each point, that's an inverse reverse to this. This is an inverse reverse to that. That is an inverse reverse to that. That is an inverse reverse to that. And so on. Okay, and from centre point, it's everywhere that looks and turns around, it's an inverse reverse to itself. Okay, however, it's joined to itself. And so from everywhere it looks, it's one. Whatever angle of perception it can look at from itself to itself, it's at one. However, the further out that you go from centre, you lose the perception. Okay? You can't see the full picture. Alright? Okay. So the next part is the choice. The choice of this way or that way. Okay? There's many choices. Alright? And all choices mate with origin. However, some fail and some don't fail, because the ones that fail haven't got the right combination to have the match. Alright? Strike doesn't occur. And so you've got a choice. One way or the other way. But within those ways, there's all variations. Okay? Infinite variations. And then we have this. So the resultant is wherever it crosses, it has a result. So wherever it crosses, there's a result. Alright? And then that wavelength consists of two wavelengths with a bond in the middle, going into itself and out to itself to infinity. So let's look at your numbering system. When this way and that way intersect and turn around against itself and intersect, all right? That's what that means. What occurs is a curve from both ends, which is a frequency, and then they come round and cut each other. So that's what occurs. You get a bend in frequency, in both ways. That's going that way, this is going that way. It's inverse reverse to itself. And then what happens is you have an action. So number 3 is the action. So it comes out the cross of the two wavelengths, right, which is itself, and with a bond in the middle, an unbreakable bond in the centre section. And so the number 4 is when those two wavelengths come together and the intersection occurs, all right, and then it gives you a choice. One way, this way, that way, in one of the 4 ways, all right? And then we get to 5. So when this way and that way join in a spiralling pattern, descending or ascending, because that's what the 6 means. This way or that way, all right? 7. So when this way and meets that way and then goes with that, if you place 7 over the top of number 5, you get 8, which is the infinity sign. I'll show you that in a minute. And then the infinity sign is represented by this circle here, and that is the wheel. Okay, that's where the wheel comes from, right? Which is basically infinity to infinity to infinity to infinity, or infinity by infinity and by infinity by infinity, you know, and so on. So a never-ending ascending and descending pattern. That is the real meaning of your numbers. And the use of your numbers is a way to do division from unity. Alright? Because we start at one point and we divide down, and it keeps dividing until it reaches a point, and then it ascends and meets back in the middle again and becomes one. Alright? Still, it's a little bit hard to understand, but you can see that you're getting the general picture. So let's look at some symbolism. When one wavelength curls round on itself, it has an action, and that action becomes a third wavelength. This is how the ancients preserved the knowledge, because it was going to take, they wanted something that wouldn't be destroyed, okay? And the only way to do that was to do it in such a way until we understood the actions of wavelength correctly, we'd be able to translate what the diagrams are saying, okay? So we've got the language of symbol, and that's very important too. Okay, so this equals that, all right? So once they intersect, we get a third creation, all right? Now, this line down here symbolises that that wavelength came from somewhere, all right? That's that. So we've got a line there, and then all we do to make the whale is to draw a line there and a line there, which signifies the join, which is the new wavelength, all right? And when you do that, it has all options, and so we have one there is the spout, which is the water coming out, and it's in a certain pattern, by the way, because that's very important. And then we've got the eye, okay, and we have the mouth, and we have the gills. So within that is everything, all right? And then human being, when we talk about chakras and this type of thing, it's the same setup. This is the same as that, all right? So we've got unity moving onwards, interacting with the wave one way or the other, a third resultant interacting with the wave, and away it goes. And then we have another resultant, don't we? All right? Now, all these bits and pieces, this is the sea of creation, okay? Now, there's a distinct pattern, so you put that around a man, you can actually work out the genetic code through the structure of the way the angles hit, but it's going into infinity in each one. I will explain that in further videos. All right, that's the language of symbols. So what have we got? We've got one wave, all right, that strikes itself, and a new resultant wave. Now, here we go. So, as it's wiggling around, this wave, it strikes itself, creates a new wave, all right, and then that wave goes down like that, all right. This represents origin, centre, okay, that represents the original one of these, and then the action occurs all the way through. So we've got origin, action, wave reaction, which is this, and creation, which is that, moving forwards. Exactly, but it's moving towards and that way. So that's like eating and getting rid of the waste, all right? But we use the waste, all the farmers will tell you the waste is the manure, which creates a new life, All right? Okay. This is a diagram for the scientists. All right? So we have the wavelength from origin. Okay? And then we've got another wavelength, which is in origin to infinity from infinity, and that's your circle of division of 1. Okay? So when one of the resultants strikes at a certain angle through origin, then the third wavelength is created. And that's how it starts. All right? That is that striking itself. Okay? This is the symbol of the ancients. That I haven't looked at a huge amount of the symbols, but I don't need to.